Well, hello there. Hey there, hi there, ho there. Welcome to another video about world building, kind of a how-to guide. Gonna make this one. I know I say this all the time. The last three, I didn't say it, and they were like 45 minutes. So this one, I'm actually going to try to keep it kind of down because I'm trying to get stuff together for the convention I have to go to this weekend. International Steampunk Symposium in Cincinnati, Ohio. I am their guest of honor. Their theme this year is Weird Westerns. Yeehaw! So anybody within the sound of my voice who is in not too far a distance from Cincinnati, Ohio, come visit. Come this weekend and check it out. I will put the link to their webpage in the description of the video. Love to see y'all. If anybody comes all the way just to see me, little old me, I will be happy to spend some time and do a little meet and greet. I'll sign your books, whatever you'd like. So please come on out. But I'm trying to get ready for that, so I'm doing like laundry and just trying to get everything ready to go. And but I didn't want to like fall off the wagon of doing videos because I've actually been trying really hard to keep those going. So this one will not be like a really long one because it's an interesting little side note to world building that I thought you guys might be interested in. I've got a bookcase right over here. You really can't see it, but I'm going to give you guys a tour of the office when I finally get it like put together, because right now it's kind of a fucking mess. But I have a bookshelf here, and part of the bookshelf is occult crap, and part of the bookshelf is writing crap. And very long time ago, back when I first started out writing fiction, I picked this up and a couple others in a series by Bova, and this one's world building. He also has one out that has to do with spaceships, and another one that has to do with time travel. And if you don't know who Bova is, shame on you. But Bova, he passed away in 2020 after a very long and very impressive career. He was author of more than 120 works of science fact and science fiction. He was the editor of Analog Science Fiction and Fact, which was a fucking amazing magazine. I don't think it's still around. And he was also editor of Omni, which I loved when I was younger. And I think Omni's not around anymore either. Omni was basically a science magazine, but it was also kind of like speculative science. It covered stuff that was on the cutting edge of science, and talked a lot about interplanetary travel, terraforming worlds, and also things like biological engineering, robotics, cybernetics. It was a cool magazine. And then Analog had some just amazing writers who contributed to Analog. So Bova was a very cool guy. Matter of fact, one of the guys that I work with, well, I haven't worked with him in a long time, but another local writer by the name of Keith Farrell was a writer, and I believe at one point editor of Omni, worked with Bova, worked with Isaac Asimov, worked with a lot of famous people. And Keith is a sweetheart. He's a wonderful guy. I have not talked to him in a long time, so I hope he's doing well. But had a little funny story. He told me once that Isaac Asimov had an office in the building across the way in New York, and literally Bova could pick up the phone and go like, "Hey, Ike, maybe like, yeah, I need a story on genetic engineering. Okay, how many words you need? Give me 1,000. All right, you want that before lunch or after lunch? No, after lunch is fine. It's after lunch is primo." So Isaac Asimov was a fucking writing machine. And actually Asimov did a lot of books, nonfiction books on various aspects of science, physics, chemistry. I believe he did one on like Shakespeare. The man was freaking brilliant. And those are great resources too. I've actually tried to hunt those down. I'm sure they're still in print, but Gene Roddenberry credited Isaac Asimov with being his book on science, astronomy, physics, as being one of the things they kept on the table when they were in the writing room for Star Trek, because they could take a look at that and it would help them to remain, make sure their science was plausible. And if they were breaking the rules of a certain science, at least they could tip the hat to the rules they were breaking. So it was like, a complete fantasy. So those might be also interesting things to chase down, is the Isaac Asimov books. And if I get a hold of some of them, I'll share them with you guys on the channel. But Ben Bova did these books, and I've got a lot of merit out of them. Now, I've read some of Bova's fiction. He did. He was awarded the Hugo Award. I think it was 6 times. Let me double check that. I think he 6-time winner of the Hugo Award. So he was president of the National Space Society and the Science Fiction Writers of America. So hell of a career. And by all the anecdotes that I've heard, a very, very nice man. Matter of fact, I mentioned him in the video I did about Harlan Ellison doing the Star Lost. He brought Ben Bova on as his scientific advisor to make sure the science was right, and they completely ignored him, which is how you got radiation virus and space senility and solar stars and all of that other wonderful, wonderful Hollywood idiocy. So this is a literal book on world building. It is nuts and bolts about how you would go about building another world other than Earth. So it has things like astronomical settings, making a planet. It has lots of stuff in here about the Earth, the geology of the Earth, so that you can compare it to other planets and how they would develop. It also covers the various ages of the Earth. So, at different times in Earth's history, it was literally a different world. The atmosphere was different. The composition of the soil, the life forms on Earth were different at different times, different ages. And then he goes into a discussion of other planets that we know of within the solar system. And then he goes further out and starts talking about stars and suns and extrapolating what planets orbiting other types of stars than our type of star would be like. And then finally kind of finishes it up with a chapter on basically variations and how to make it freaky and make it science fiction. Now you can make any kind of, I'll be honest with you, when I was doing the Queen's Road, which is space opera, kind of like urban space opera, I did not make sure that the gravity and the atmosphere were right for a lot of the worlds that I had my characters visit, because I was going from a premise of more of space opera is really more fantasy. It's fantasy with the trappings of science fiction. Star Wars is space opera. It has space wizards. It has magic laser swords. Star Trek, some Star Trek adheres much closer to science fiction. It is still somewhat space opera because it has some of the tropes of space opera in it. For example, there are a lot of science fiction writers who basically say if you've got faster than light travel in your science fiction, it ain't science fiction. It's space opera. It's a fantasy. I would disagree with that, because I have read some pretty hard science. Well, Larry Niven is a hard science fiction writer, but he has fantastic, amazing things in his world. Ian Banks, the late Ian Banks, which I really recommend his books. They're the Culture series, I believe is what it's called. Those are freaking amazing, and they're you can always get away with the trope of, if the science is advanced enough, it's magic. Star Trek did that a lot. You'd run into these beings that appeared to be like gods, and they were really just really super advanced life forms. But I didn't pursue a lot of hard science stuff when I was doing the Queen's Road, because the worlds were actually more of a backdrop for the actions of the character. So I didn't really, in my estimation, and again, this is always the author's call, until it gets to the editor, then it's the editor's call. It was my estimation that, you know, I didn't need to like spend a lot of time sweating over what the pressure of the atmosphere would be like, and how that would affect the oceans, and what kind of water or liquid was on the planet, and all of that stuff. Now, if you are going to be writing hard science fiction, if you're going to be writing about, you know, humans going out and exploring worlds, and the worlds that they go to are a big part of your story, then something like this book by Ben Bova would be extremely helpful to you, because you and it may be you're going to bend the rules, because the fact of the matter is we have not fully explored the universe. We have scientific theory and scientific fact, and you try as a writer, depending on what you're writing, to be aware of those things. I mean, even if you look at like John Carter of Mars, the Barsoom books by Edgar Rice Burroughs, he was using what was known at the time about Mars, and a lot of it was extrapolation by men of science of the day, and he was trying to make it as scientifically accurate as he could, given the time and given, you know, his access to information. So John Carter was a Superman on Mars because the gravity was lighter, and lo and behold, it turns out the gravity is lighter on Mars. So I mean, a lot of it depends on what you're trying to build, as far as what kind of world you're trying to write and create. But there is nothing wrong, and there are a lot of folks who really The Martian is a great book. It's a really cool book, and it tries as hard as it possibly can to adhere to what we know of science, and what we know of how the universe works, and what we know about Mars. And it's still a very just captivating story about a person, about survival, man versus the elements, man versus nature, which is one of the classic plots for fiction. So again, you know, and even if you're not going to be doing like a lot of sciencey stuff in your science fiction, it doesn't hurt to know that there are different classes of stars, you know, Roy G. Biv, and it doesn't hurt to know that there are geological ages of the Earth, and that the atmosphere was different in those ages. It doesn't hurt to know what kind of acceleration you need to break out of the atmosphere of Earth. It doesn't hurt to know that there is a speed limit on the speed of light that we don't believe is breakable within this universe, but we're not entirely certain. There's lots of scientists who postulate that there are ways around that limit, that barrier. And humans are really good at circumventing barriers. We do that a lot. So it's a fascinating read. And also, if you're a little, you know, light on your science, and you don't want to, you know, you don't want to go through like a textbook, it's a very entertaining read. And Ben Bova is a great writer. He was really good at taking complicated concepts and making them very accessible to laymen. So I would highly recommend that book. Like I said, there's another on time travel. It talks a great deal about paradoxes. You know, basically what flavor is your time travel, because there are different theories about if time travel was possible, what kind of repercussions would it have? Would something you do in the past as a time traveler affect the present? There's the story of the butterfly effect, which I believe was a Ray Bradbury story, if I remember correctly, where a man stepped on a butterfly in the past and it completely altered history. So there's some flavors of time travel where the time is very very fragile, and should not be tampered with. And then there are other versions of time travel where time is like a raging river, like, you know, it's this huge river chugging along like the Mississippi, and you doing something in the past is like throwing a pebble into that river. It doesn't really have much impact. In those kind of stories, a time traveler really can't change time. You can't go back and save Kennedy. You can't go back and kill Hitler before World War II ever happened. Something will stop you. And they're both valid, you know, worlds to build stories in. But it's a good thing to come up with these, you know, how does time travel work in your universe, if it works? What kind of worlds, if you have an alien race? I believe Bova did a book on aliens too, and I may have it. I was very fortunate to find this, and I was thinking I could probably dig out the time travel one and the Starship one too. But, you know, knowing how things like gravity, pressure, atmosphere affect the biological life forms on a planet will help you to create aliens that are plausible. Vulcans are stronger than humans because their planet has a higher gravity. So if you put Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock together on a 1G planet, Spock is considerably stronger than Kirk because he was raised, his muscles, his bone, his tendons, all of that stuff has been evolved to handle a heavier gravity all the time. In one episode, Spock has, you discover that Vulcans have a secondary set of eyelids that like snap down like a reflex and keep Spock from being permanently blinded. There's an episode where Kirk and Spock have to fight on Vulcan in a ritual, and Kirk is dying because the air is so fucking thin and the atmosphere is the temperature is higher. So it's, you know, hot as Vulcan is a term apparently in Star Trek. So Kirk is like dying, you know, and he can't get a good breath because there's just not enough oxygen. But Spock's lungs have evolved so that they can handle having less oxygen and still function just fine. That is all aspects of world building. So, you know, when you start slapping aliens together, you can slap an alien together any way you want because, you know, theoretically, if it's an infinite universe, somewhere out there's a planet that will fit. But you'll get less eyes rolled by your readers if you go through and basically, you know, a lot of times a reader is willing to suspend disbelief if you acknowledge that they're doing it and you acknowledge that you at least are paying some lip service to the rules, even if you're breaking them. That's why in so many science fiction novels where they do have faster than light travel, they'll usually spend a good amount of time to explaining to you how it works and why it works. And even though, you know, a physicist might go, that's bullshit, the average reader, even the physicist, might read it and go, okay, that's bullshit, but at least they are acknowledging that they know that you can't just jump in your rocket ship and go roaring off faster than the speed of light. So that is, again, another aspect of world building. And this has probably already gone longer than I expected it was going to. But basically, these are some things that you might want to, you know, kick around. There are so many good books on science, physics, terraforming. If you're doing stuff on genetic engineering, there's all kinds of books on genetics and chimera, which is, you know, taking animal DNA and mixing it with human DNA. And this is all just fascinating stuff that you could really write some cool stories about. It's just you have to do a little bit of research, you know, because it'll show. There are science fiction writers who, it's very clear, didn't know anything about science and didn't care to know anything about science. There are television shows like that. And there are genres where it's okay. I mean, if you're doing kind of a Jules Verne sort of a kind of a universe, one of the worlds that I had for a role-playing game, which I actually want to revisit that world for a novel, was based off of kind of very pulpy space opera science fiction. You could go out and you didn't need a helmet in space because there was air. It was just really cold, but you could breathe, and you could rocket between the planets in a few hours. Maybe then you get all the way out to the like edges of the solar system, and maybe take a few days. And you had all these kind of animal anthropomorphic animal people. Anthropomorphic, close enough. Kind of aliens that made no fucking sense, but within the logic of that universe, they made sense. I did this kind of like Three Musketeers thing set in this universe, and I always wanted to go back to that and do it as a novel, because I think it'd be a lot of fun. And some people are going to read this and would read something like that and be like, but there is a market for, and there's a fandom for that sort of stuff. I'm going to a steampunk convention this weekend. There's gonna be a lot of people there who are totally into like alternate histories, alternate technologies, and all that fun stuff. So you don't have to, this doesn't have to be your Bible. You don't have to world build in a hard science fiction universe. But if you're not going to, then you still need to figure out the rules of your world. And if you are going to, if you want something that sounds plausible, that sounds closer to hard classic science fiction, you need to do a little time and do a little research. And that doesn't have to be a bad thing. It's not like eating your vegetables. It's going to be fun. And I would recommend Ben Bova as someone you seek out, and Isaac Asimov as well, because those are all books that were designed to be read by laymen and explain to them very complex, scientific theories and mechanics. And so that's another aspect of world building that I wanted to touch on. And I guess I've touched on it. So now I'm going to go check my laundry. I hope everybody is having a great week. I probably won't get another video out before the convention. I will come back and tell you guys about it. And like I said, if anybody is near Ohio, Cincinnati, it's the 25th, 26th, 27th in Cincinnati, Ohio. It is the International Steampunk Symposium. And this year, the theme is Weird Westerns. They've got bands, they've got dealers' rooms, they've got booze. Of course, if you're old enough of age and have proper ID, they got costuming. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm excited to do it. It's been a long time since I've got to go to a convention. And any of you folks who might be able to make it out that way, please do. I'd love to see you, and I'll make some time for you, and just let you know how much I appreciate your being a part of the channel and reading the books and kind of keeping me going. If this has been anything that you enjoyed and you think maybe your friends would enjoy it, or your enemies, maybe you hated it and you just want to like send it to your enemies because they'll hate it too, maybe worse than you did, please do. Share the channel, share the videos, like the channel, click on the bell for notifications. I really do want to grow the channel. And yes, the main reason I want to grow the channel is because I'm greedy and evil capitalist, and I want to make money and be able to do these videos all the time without pants, like right now, and basically just do this for a living, which would be great. I still do the writing. I'm never going to stop the writing, regardless of what I'm doing. I love that. It's just this is a fun way to reach out and interact with people. So, anyways, please like the channel, subscribe to it, and share the videos. And I will see you guys on the other side of the Steampunk Symposium. And I hope everybody has a fantastic week and a great weekend. Take care. Bye.